Call this July 13th Jackson County Commission meeting to order. Have a roll call.
District 1, Mr. Guffey. Present. District 2, Mr. Venable. Present. District 3, Mr. Miller. Present. District 4, Mr. Level. Present. Chairman also present.
And so a quorum is present. We can conduct business. We'll have our invocation by Mr. Porter and our pledge by Mr. Guffey.
God, our Father in heaven, we're blessed to be here today. We're so thankful for these men that have chosen to serve the public. And we pray that you will be with them and give them discernment and wisdom in matters that come before them today. God, we always want to hold out others that are having times of trouble and difficulty, and that we ask that you give special blessing to the Crawford family, Ron and his family, the passing of his sister. We also know there are others that need just as much care and just as much prayer. So God, we pray for them also. We pray that you'll watch over them and keep them in your hand and guide them and direct them. Be with us as we proceed with this meeting today, and all the people of Jackson County. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the first item, approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, and we have minutes from the June 22nd meeting. Are there any comments or questions on that? Any comments or questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as set out?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. All right. Next item is approval of the agenda. We have 11 items. I would like to strike item 10. I think everybody in here today has had an opportunity to listen to the presentation, so we'll strike number 10 and go from there. So with that change, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay. Now, Mr. Clemens, we signed up to speak. We do have you on the agenda. Would you like to wait until that time?
I do whatever suits the commission.
Okay. If you wanted some discussion, that'd be better to wait until the end of the.
Okay.
All right, so we have no old business. We'll move on to new business, and the first item is a motion to approve the bids for the trucks for the solid waste department. You have in your packets an actually your copy of the bid documents for two vehicles at solid waste sanitation department. We did when we looked at the previous bids, those bids had not been advertised, so we had to reject those bids. And this is, after we've been through the bid process again, this is the reworked bids, and these are the results of that. And in that, just to clarify, if we motion to approve this, I would like to clarify that we did reject the previous bids as stated in our last meeting. So if you have anything to say, Mr. Thompson?
After sending out those bids and getting these back right here, the only thing you requested was 90 days. We're getting so late in the year, that would be fine. And if we approve these right here, just like the two F-150s, would be much perfect.
Okay. All right, so any questions or comments on this? The recommendation is to purchase the two F-150, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve that purchase of those bids, or with that bid?
So moved.
Motion, we have a second. Okay. Any discussion, further discussion?
Clarify that this comes out of the solid waste budget.
Yes, this comes out of the sanitation, their funds. Okay. Motion and second, any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay, next item, motion to transfer an employee from the sanitation to the mapping and appraisal department. This what I'd like to do is request a 3-month transfer and then confirm that transfer. If nothing changes, we'll confirm that transfer at the end of the 3-month time period starting today. And this is for the employee, Mr. Ryder, works out at the sanitation department to be in mapping and appraisal. So I think everyone's had questions or comments on that before we proceed? So do we have a motion to make that transfer for 3 months and to be confirmed administratively at the end of that time?
Make that motion.
Motion and a second. We have a second. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay. Next item, motion to approve Northeast Alabama Water, Sewer, and Fire Protection Districts. We have, again, this was brought up in a work session last week, and Mr. Porter, have you reviewed this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, my understanding is this allows them to compensate board members, is that correct?
It does provide minimum, I don't remember the amount they said, but it does provide for the purpose of it.
Okay. Again, this was presented last week, but we didn't have much knowledge on it. Are there any questions or comments on this? This doesn't cost us anything, obviously, it's within the auspices of the board itself. But being that it is the CAB and Jackson board, we have to approve any changes in the bylaws, correct?
That's right.
So any questions or comments on that?
How many members do we appoint for this?
I think we have one member this morning. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion to approve this item.
Make a motion.
Motion and a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. Next item, motion to approve the purchase of safety lights for the public works trucks. This is something we talked about. I know it's come up at the public works meeting. I was here with us this afternoon. The total cost estimated about $11,000 to do all of the trucks. This is to replace the lights that are needed to be replaced and also to put lights on those trucks that do not have lights at this time. Obviously, it is a safety concern. However, if we do it, it's going to have to come from Fund 100 out of their equipment portion of that if we move forward with this. So we can do a portion of it, we can do the whole thing. I think the balance in Fund 100 right now is about $800,000, so that's what it was at the beginning of the year. And again, only a portion of that can be used for equipment, so that would go into that. So any questions or comments on this or ideas on how we want to proceed?
Does that include installation?
That's a very good question.
I think that's this.
I think that would be good, put them on, I can find out. And we can wait on this too if we need some further time to discuss.
I don't think we need to wait on the whole package because I got mine on the plate cutters today. And it's pretty hard to see them if you come out of the curve. I think we need to do it. If not, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure there's someone else that will give us a bid on installation.
I think we can put them on ourselves, the way I understand the process works. I don't think it's terrible, but if we do need to research that, if that's not included in this cost, we will need to come back and approve those.
I was under the assumption it was included. Installation, wasn't you? I make a motion to approve it.
Approve it as a
As a whole.
full package. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that motion.
Now, any further discussion? I would say if it needs installation, we need to come back and review that before we move forward with that, if there's any additional cost on that. Any other questions or comments?
This is, just make sure that this is aware that this is becoming a safety concern. And these vehicles not having these lights on.
Right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Next item, motion to approve resignation from employee from Public Works. This resignation actually occurred June 18th. It had not been brought to a meeting, so entertain a motion to accept this resignation at this time.
Make that motion.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? And like several positions at this time, we've not looked to refill this. We'll wait until probably end of August, 1st of September to see what positions need to be filled out there. I think we've cut nearly 10 positions out of Public Works since we've been here, so some of those may need to be replaced at some point. So any further discussion on that? Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Okay, next item, motion to approve a resolution regarding the Revenue Commissioner's retirement. Okay, Mr. Ron Crawford has ended his term as Revenue Commissioner, and that actually the first, is that the first was his last day? And he was, what's that?
July 1st.
July 1st. He received his letter from the governor. It is up to us in order for him to receive the full compensation for his, what's the word I'm looking for? Supernumerary position, for us to approve a resolution allowing that to happen. So, Mr. Porter, you may be able to explain that a little bit better.
Supernumerary positions are pretty unique. We don't have many of them. I can't remember the last one that we had. I believe it was sheriff a long, long time ago. But the certain elected officials have the right to choose to be appointed as supernumerary positions rather than participate in the state retirement program, and that's what Ron Crawford did. And so he is now retired, and he was appointed by the governor as supernumerary revenue commissioner effective July 1, 2015. So he has been foregoing a portion of his salary all these years and basically in lieu of retirement. And so now the county will be responsible for the payment of his salary, 75% of his salary. And it just, for your information, and Jeff can probably help me better, but the apportionment will be apportioned just like it is currently to the various taxing authorities that we administer throughout the county. They'll bear their fair share of this burden. So it's not all coming out of the county commission funds, although we have to write the check. So I hope that makes sense, but it's a unique position, and he is appointed, if something should happen to Jeff for a little while, and Ron Crawford will be there to step in and be the revenue commissioner. And I think everybody knows that Jeff has been appointed already.
So any questions or comments on that?
Just reiterate that he has chosen to participate in this with his own funds.
Right, correct. Any other questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Okay, second? Okay, any further discussion? It's a very unique thing, and I'm glad we don't have to deal with any more like this. It's odd. But I do want to thank Ron, and his sister did pass away this last week, and keep him and his family in our prayers, but I do thank him for the service to the county. 30 plus years, 30 years of service to the county, so obviously dedicated to the job that he did. Thank you very much for all of that he's done. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay. Next item, motion to approve and hire temporary workers for the Parks and Public Works Department. We have letters. We have a letter from the Parks Department for the temporary worker. As we all know, the temporary there resigned. Is that correct? A couple months ago. We also have temporary positions for Public Works to help us do a little bit more patching for the remainder of this year. We did this last year. We reduced the number this year to 6 from 9. We need to see if this is something feasible for the future, but with how far behind we were, we felt, our assistant engineer felt it necessary to move forward with this. So we have these two items. We can approve the recommendations either one at a time, or we can approve them together.
Make a motion to approve them together.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? These will be for a maximum of 6 months, as it says, not to exceed 6 months. Most likely it'll be for a 4-month period due to the winter time coming up. And again, the hope is if we do replace, like I said, I think we lost 10 employees in Public Works since we've been here. If we replace 2 or 3 of those, this will give us a good pool to pull that from. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. And next item, motion to approve our committee's recommendation for vacant park and council on aging positions. We have again from the park and from the council on aging a recommendation for a part-time driver and for the park maintenance position. Again, we had a full-time maintenance person resign, as well as one of our drivers, I think, retired. So Have a motion to approve these separate or together?
Make a motion to approve it again.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? This is the most commission or positions we've replaced, I think, since we've been here. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, say no. And the final thing, motion to approve and advertise for a substitute driver. This position would be just in case that driver's not able to make it one day. We have someone that we can call in to serve for that day. I guess we can approve that through this process. They did not have enough qualify or interview and qualify in this past round, so they've asked that we go back through the hiring process and request that we advertise for a substitute driver now and specify that it is a substitute position. So any questions on that? We have a motion to approve that and advertise for that position.
So moved.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Okay, and the final item we have Mr. Horace Clemens. Bear with us.
Before I talk about the budget, there were a couple of items that I wanted to address, and that's this commission has stated the quality of accounting from the previous commission was subpar. Having sat through a budget review by the state audit personnel that covered the time that I was in the commission, I don't understand that statement. So what I'd like you to do is get the state auditor to support something, give you something supporting the statement that says our accounting is subpar. Also, the commission stated that solid waste was running at a deficit when you took over. Now, did you go back and check the records? My understanding is both solid waste and park not running at a deficit when you took over. So I'd like you to review that and acknowledge one way or another with supporting fact of that. So on the tax increases, my view is you guys have already given everybody in the county a tax increase. Because when we passed that solid waste increase, if I remember correctly, Mr. Ford, we said once we had the solid waste back in shape and paying for itself, that we would return that money to the citizens. And you guys decided not to. To me, that's a tax increase on every family in Jackson County. I'll acknowledge that the commission that I was on created a lot of your budgetary problems. We passed a wage increase for every employee, an hourly rate increase that added about $800,000 of expense to the budget at a time when revenues were coming down. I said tax increases are an easy answer to the problem. I'd encourage you to look at the plight of the citizens and the county employees and determine how to strike a happy medium before you increase taxes on everybody. This next one, I've always been confused, and everybody I've asked seems to have a different opinion. The jail tax that was passed, from what I can see, I thought it was supposed to go away with the jail. But if I'm correct, there was some kind of deal struck. I can't find much about it. Because I understand it, if you can like it, it'd be great. My understanding is that went to the school system, and most of it's gone to capital funds, not education. So if all that's true, I think we'd be better served if we took a look at that and see if we could redirect any of it, all of it. I mean, I have a copy of a letter where there was a promise made to leave that tax with the school system forever, which I don't understand how that happened, what it was. So I like all that better understood. But, I prefer that we move that money back into the general fund before we got to tax the citizens. And I also believe pushing for a proposition to make Jackson County wet and generate revenue and we reflect all the citizens. Those are just my opinions, plus the request for clarification of some information. The last line is Joe. I said, you could do like that, and give the salary to the citizens. That's just ridiculous.
Would you like me to go ahead and address some of these?
I'm glad for you to.
Okay. As far as the statements made on the prior commissioners, what we have is the audit that states that the budget deficit existed in 2010 fiscal year. And of course, that's existed from that point until today.
I don't deny or doubt it,
Okay.
but that's not subpart county.
Well, we've got, I can sit down with you again and show you that some of the information Mr. Manning, I think, can help. That's something you kind of have to sit down, but we'll be glad to do that, as I've offered a couple times.
I personally would rather keep my opinion and your opinion out of it and go with the state auditor's opinion.
Okay, in regard to solid waste, again, the facts are there. When we came into office, due to the number of raises that were given, due to the increase of the engineer's salary that was placed on solid waste, the increase of salaries that occurred in solid waste, at the time when we came into office, there was a slight deficit in solid waste. So it was losing dollars. We've since removed a few people out of that. It is now back to operating in the green, so to speak, just barely though in the green. So as far as that being a tax increase, which I think is the second part, we've got to have enough obviously to operate. We can't use the general fund to supplement it because the dollars aren't there in the general fund. We still have the deficit in the general fund. But again, those are numbers that we'd be glad to sit down and show and walk through the process of where we came from, where we are, where we're headed with that. We have started some new programs with solid waste, I think, that are going to help with the roll-off and something else.
And the recycling program, help.
With recycling, doesn't make a whole lot. It's going to save us some landfill fees, but the roll-off business should help us out. And I think I hope the goal of this commission, we did have a local law passed last year that allows us to use 5% of those revenues towards the general fund. That's about $100,000 a year. Beyond that point, I'm not opposed to, and again, if we're able to operate every other aspect of the business, I would not be opposed to reducing the solid waste fee once our general fund solvent. That's just my personal opinion on that part of it, that side of it. The other gentleman may have another one.
So with the 100,000 you took off, if you put that back in, it would be operating on surplus.
It would be. Now, again, that's after we've removed 2 or 3 people. We've also removed the engineer salary from that as well. So we've removed several things from that. Hourly wage increase. Okay. In regard to, on number 4, I'm not sure.
We gave you across the board 80 cent an hour increase to every employee, which is part of what you would, I assume, just referencing. If I remember the numbers right, we added $800,000 annually to the budget at a time when we were already, so that drove us negative.
Right.
Okay, and it was just not a very wise thing.
Number 5, the way the sales tax was laid out, my understanding that sales tax for the jail, it dropped off the day that commission came out of office. Now, there was another penny put in place for education in January of the following year. The city, I think, immediately added a penny, and then the county put on another penny under a new commission. And that was 1997. I think we've got copies of those laws, maybe here. But that was done the following year. Now, what happened with Mr. Tidmore, my understanding, and I've seen that same agreement that you saw, both of those pennies of sales tax were allotted 100% towards education. My understanding was that the county was actually receiving a portion of that, even though it was supposed to be going to education. So that agreement Mr. Tidmore signed was basically saying, okay, we're going to give all of this to education as it's supposed to be done. And, they're not going to come back and say, hey, you owe us however many dollars for however many years that was paid out. Do you remember that?
That's accurate.
So that was my understanding of that process. As far as taking anything back away, we could always reduce those taxes on education. However, we have no authority to put that tax on for the county ourselves. So if we were to reduce education's 0.5%, we'd still have to go through the process we're going through right now in order to get even half a cent back on, or whatever that amount would be.
Is that, am I correct in the assumption that school tax money is used for capital improvement?
One penny of it is used for capital improvement, the other penny of it is used for general operations. So, yeah, there's, those two.
Where we are educationally and where we are with, if I'm correct, we're not seeing a significant increase at all. Probably a decrease in population of schools, right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
So wouldn't it be a good thing to try to take that penny back? And that way you would be doing a tax increase without actually an increase, since you're doing a reduction.
We can reduce it. Well, my understanding is, as a commission, we can reduce it, but again, we can't give that to ourselves.
Asking for an increase after you've done a reduction is a whole lot easier on the people than asking for an increase, then it's an increase.
Well, that, we've talked to the school system before about the possibilities of that, and I think we've got a little bit more understanding of their budget to do before we take those dollars away from them. They're seeing a lot of the same things as they move tax drop, they're being affected by that as well. And let's see, in regard to making the county wet, again, that's not something we've touched to this point. Is it something for the future? I don't know, but again, the commission has felt that this sales tax is really the best answer to pursue a long-term goal and solution for our problem. Property tax does not increase like sales tax does. You would not see the same dollars from going wet and the taxes on alcohol that you would see from the sales tax increase. And even though, yes, everybody in the county has to pay on that sales tax, so do all those folks that come out from the county, which you would see that on an alcohol tax as well, but it's a lot more dollars that you're going to see by putting this as a full sales tax in place. Again, we're not putting that burden just on Jackson County citizens. We're looking at the long term and how, as we increase tourism and better in that way, we're going to see more dollars and see our budget grow in that way, so that hopefully we don't have to come back and put an additional tax on Jackson County citizens.
So out of this, there seems to be some confusion as to exactly what all the tax money is going to be used for.
No, we did put that, I know we sent that to the papers, $1.5 million towards public works, and this is based off the $3.3 million estimate we had. $1.5 million towards public works to help with paving of roads, $300,000 towards the fire departments throughout Jackson County, $300,000 towards school resource officers. We plan over a 2 to 3 year period to have a total of 5 or 6 resource officers, and we expect the school board to participate in that. $300,000 towards industrial development, which will go a long way towards that. And that's another thing, again, we invest in industrial development right now. We're not seeing the benefits of that. We have the $600 million Google investment in Jackson County. The benefits the county government gets financially is minimal as far as the benefit from that. We evade our property taxes, so they don't pay that. Of course, we don't get a sales tax, so all those folks that come in, the contractors and everything else, we're not seeing anything from that. Again, that's why we feel the sales tax is beneficial, because then when something like that happens, we see those dollars come back in, and we can continue to invest in industry. So $300,000 towards that, $900,000 towards the general fund to cover our deficit, to cover the drop we expect from PBA in lieu of taxes this next year. And is that everything? I didn't miss anything, did I?
So there won't be anything used to support a bond issue.
For what would you do with bond issue?
Well, there's been talk about reconstruction, getting out of the courthouse, building an office complex. So
It would be great in the future if we could do something and we talked about pulling the revenue and the probate office out of the courthouse. That'd be great if we can do that in the future, but I think we're going to have to navigate this next couple of years to kind of see, again, with TBA and lieu of tax drops, $900,000 is going to carry us through a couple of years, and hopefully Google will rebound us before we start dropping it. But that's going to be depending on how sales tax grows and everything else. But immediately, I don't think that anything like that we can move forward with. But again, I think in the commission, we talked in some budget meetings when we first came out that would be a great idea. But right now, that's not something we can afford to do.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there any reason why the commission couldn't change that at any time? Is there any earmarks at all?
Yes, the commission, again, as we said, the commission could come in, if we do this, if the people vote this up and we say this is how we're going to spend it, if every single one of us are gone in 4 years, the next commission could say we're going to spend, all $3.3 million on, buying suckers for citizens of Jackson County. But again, if they do that, I would hope the citizens of Jackson County vote them out. And with the elections every 2 years, again, we have the opportunity to show our commission, all our elected officials, it's our obligation to show them that they're not doing what we
But
expect.
is there a resolution from this commission saying that's where the money's going, or is that just a promise?
When we pass the resolution to enact the tax, if this passes, it has to pass through the people first, and then it'll be up to us to pass a resolution to pass the tax. I'm not opposed to saying this is where we intend to spend the money. The law, of course, outlines this is where, but it doesn't give
So
specific
as it stands right now, there's nothing in the law says that money has to go to those things.
Not a specific amount.
There's nothing that ties our hands to do this.
The other thing I have, why would you expect citizens of Jackson County to pay 1 cent and not expect Google to pay on $600 million?
Well, if we could get them here and get them to pay, it'd be great. But you can't get businesses here and.
It's a baby, right?
Right, yeah.
So that's my concern.
We had to make a choice.
It's unfair.
Do we want the company here? We could say, you know, we could, I mean, you can say, we want you to pay taxes, and then they can go somewhere else. So you have to make a choice to whether you want to get those companies here, and that's where everybody is doing the same thing. It ain't just Jackson County or just Alabama. Everybody's having to do that to get companies to come in.
Well, not want to argue with you, but there's not many Widows Creeks around.
If they had several more sites that they might.
Any of the commissioners have anything else to add to that?
First, Mr. Clemens, I'd like to thank you for coming and bringing these questions to us. We have done our due diligence to try to get the information out there. And we've had community meetings, we've been on radio, TV, social media, being available for the citizens, you know, when we go to sporting events or whatever, on personal places. I kind of take offense when you say that we're raising taxes. We've proposed this for a vote of the people of Jackson County, and we've tried to make them aware of the facts as best we could. And it's not just about balancing the budget. I mean, I had our previous engineer go back all the way to '07 and pull the records on how many miles of road have been paved with local funds. And we've been able to pave 13 3/4 miles of road per year over an 8-year period. It's not just about balancing the budget. We want Jackson County to go forward, and that's what this vote is about.
Thanks, Ed.
I'd like to comment on the solid waste, the $100,000 that we voted to take out of there. Number one, garbage trucks and buses are the county road's worst enemies. I think it was fair that you received some of those funds from the solid waste to repair and patch some of our roads, because that is what's tearing most of them up. Not all of it. There's longer trucks, there's a lot of things, but that's a revenue stream that we could tap into, and that's the reason why that was done. So I want to make sure that's clear. It wasn't just taken out just because you could. It was taken out to repair some damages that we felt like our garbage trucks has been created.
So you put
For a
that
while.
money in, public works?
We're putting the money in the general fund and put it wherever we decide to. It don't go to a specific fund.
Your reason was the roads, but yet you're not putting.
General fund offsets and supplements public works. So you could say we do use that for
We're
public
spending
works.
considerably more than $100,000 on public works besides public works budget.
The other part of that, when solid waste was created, there was a significant loan given to solid waste, so that $100,000. In 10 years, that loan should be paid back, and at that point, again, if the general fund's solvent, maybe that $100,000 is not needed.
Solid waste operating deficit for lots of years.
Right, and it was, yeah, supported by the general fund.
Yes, several years.
Gentlemen, you have anything to add? Okay. Anything else?
No, I appreciate your time.
We appreciate you coming. We'll take a further look at this, and again, I'll get the information together regarding those two, and maybe we can set a time where we can, or if you're still interested in county park, that has had a surplus every year, as far as I know, since we've been here. But we can gather the information on the solid waste, and again, we have an opportunity to get together and discuss it. Anything else? All right. That concludes the items on our agenda. We'll move on to our reports. Sheriff? Mr. Ashford? Probate Judge? Certainly. Ready? Mr. Level, you have anything further? Mr. Miller? Mr. Guthrie?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. Mann? That concludes the items for our agenda this afternoon, so now we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I would, before we do that, I'm sorry, next week we'll need to have a meeting prior to our work session. We'll have it at 6 and then have a work session to follow. That will be at Skyline Town Hall at 6 p.m. That's next Monday. And we need to have that meeting to approve some of the engineer contract. Okay, anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to recess or adjourn?
We adjourn, we'll just have a second meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. We are adjourned.